Hi, I'm Sean. I've always been curious about the answers to life's big questions. I thought it would be cool to seek some of those answers through conversations with others on a similar path. I started this podcast with a simple mission. I want to help you improve your life. These conversations are meant to challenge you, make you think, and to inspire you to pursue the things in life that light you up. I've always believed that with the right mix of effort and perseverance, anything truly is possible. I'd like to invite you to think outside the lines. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Think Outside the Lines podcast. My guest today wants to help you gain clarity and focus on your sole purpose. Her mission is to help dispel victim mentality and to teach people how to use their life experiences to become an empowered expression of love and truth. The lessons she's learned and the awakening she's experienced has transformed her into the inspirational, insightful, and thought-provoking author, speaker, and coach that she is today. And I have no doubt you will be inspired by our conversation. It's time to think outside the lines with Lily Sanders. Welcome to the show, Lily Sanders. How are you today?
Thank you. I am fantastic. How are you today, Sean?
I'm awesome. I'm really excited to chat with you this morning. I always start by asking my guests what they believe to be the message that they were brought here to share with the world.
Okay. The message that I was brought here today to show to the world is really how we can transform pain in our life into peace instead of suffering.
I love that. Now, you say that part of your mission is to encourage people to see themselves from their soul level, independent from any experience, happening, or event, and that
yes,
no matter who we are or where we are at this moment, that we should love it.
Yes, completely. I believe that when we find our truth and the essence of who we are, it is, like you said, it's independent of any happening, any experience. What I like to always say is, and one of my quotes in Truth to Triumph is, it is what it appears in that or arises in that space, if you will, after the exhale of an experience. And that is really our truth. And wherever we are in that exhale, in that space, love it completely, be in complete acceptance. We can always, make a choice to, take a different action or turn something around. Choice really comes down to your choice for peace. Situations, every listener here will admit, and you will admit the same, Sean, is, we all sometimes know that situations may not always turn perfect, but the choice to have peace in a situation is always there. And if you have peace in a situation, then it truly is perfect. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And you know what? I'm incredibly aligned with this, but I think that the journey to get there can be really challenging for some people. Talk to me a bit about maybe what we can do or how we can begin to see ourselves from this soul level that you speak of, and really learn to love where we are in the moment.
Okay, great. And that is what I love to teach people best is, in order to look at ourselves from soul level, we have to actually begin to really, really understand or really see ourselves separate from our life situation. And that means exactly that. That means that, when we see ourselves in a situation in life as, a business owner, an entrepreneur, an employee, an employer, a mother, a father, an uncle, an aunt, whatever it is, we're attaching these labels onto what we think we are, what the thinking mind tells us, but it's not actually who we are. When we begin to see ourselves at soul level, we're letting go of that linear concept of thinking, and we're allowing that multidimensional concept as your new reality. So when you come into this awareness and you see that you're so much more than this vehicle, the vehicle is what I call the body. Like right now, if you touch your arms, your shoulders, your head, your nose, that's your body. And that houses the soul. When you begin to see that the difference between what is housing the soul and what actually your soul is, then that potential is there to unlock anything and everything your heart desires, because you'll be in this harmonious matrimony, if you will. That's what I call it, with yourself and with your inner child. In fact, what I started kind of branding myself a little differently, Sean. And you and your listeners are one of the first few thousand to be in on this. Is I started to brand myself as a locksmith to the heart.
Oh, I like that.
Because thank you so much. What I found was that what I really do and the essence of who I am and what I do and help people do is really unlock those barriers and really unlock that closure, if you will, and that blockage that is stopping people from really getting out of the dark and coming into the light. And not just spiritually. I'm talking about, spiritually involves your entire life. So I'm talking about with your work, with your home life, of course, your inner work. But that's really key when you start to see yourself separate from, this body, that houses the soul. And that is going to really come from first a self-inquiry, where you really, really can sit still by yourself in complete presence with yourself. And I know that's really hard for many of us to do. It's really all about learning to shut off the thinking mind until it comes to a complete stop. And that's true presence. That is true meditation. Meditation is not an act of doing. Meditation is a state of being. We should all really learn to, and this is a lot of what I teach, how to be in a meditational state of being. How to meditate is what I'm saying, while you're doing anything, during any time of the day, even
Wherever
during the
you
most
are,
during the most stressful time at work. You should be able to stop and just, ground yourself, regroup. Regroup with who? Regroup with yourself, regroup with your soul, regroup with the essence of who you are. And when you're able to do that every single time, at any moment that you need to, then you start to really see life in a completely different way. And I hate to sound, this sounds funny, but then all of the minutiae in life situations that are kind of, at one point or another are either bombarding you or not, things are up and down, and it starts to become a matter of really, who cares? It doesn't really matter. It starts to not really matter. What really matters is the essence of who you are and how you navigate, how you learn to navigate through every single life situation, every single happening and event, every single circumstance that you find yourself in, with flying colors. And what does that mean? Without losing yourself, without losing your truth, without losing your cool. I mean, I could put that in so many different ways, but does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I guess my question to follow up with that would be, because again, I'm aligned with all of this, but I'm someone listening right now and I'm maybe in that dark place that you spoke of.
Mm-hmm.
What, I know that it's presence, but what if I don't even know how to get present yet? Like, what are some steps I can take? Maybe what are some things that I could do to, like, right after listening to this interview, I want to get started with this?
Perfect question. Okay, so the way we really get into presence and not understanding how to do that and not understanding how to shut off the thinking mind is to begin to learn how to shut off the thinking mind. Because what's going on, we're always hearing that.
I was going to say, is it possible to shut that mind off?
It is. And I'm going to tell you why. It's possible to shut it off, but it's going to keep knocking. It's going to keep coming in because we can't stop thoughts from coming in, just like we can't stop, different things going on. Thank God, our breath. Like we can't stop different things from going on in our bodies. Same thing with the thinking. But what we can do is we can learn to use those thoughts in a different way. Instead of believing and listening to those thoughts, we can choose what thoughts we'd like to let in at any given time. So the first step is actually to let go of our stories. And our stories is usually what we have stored, inside of us from 10 years ago, 30 years ago, 10 minutes ago, maybe even 5 minutes ago. Maybe you just walked in the door and you just had road rage. Someone really irritated you on the street this morning, or someone, anything that becomes a story that you have stuck in your mind, and you become trapped in them. And there's layers and layers of stories that we get trapped in. So, that's how we create our own suffering. And suffering serves no purpose other than to make us unhappy. So we don't want to suffer. And suffering is that number one cause for disease and even death. And we all know that. By 2018, we're all aware of that. So when you store those unhappy stories, which is basically the judgment that you put on something that happened, if that makes sense. And I'd like listeners to understand what happened 10 minutes ago is what happened 10 minutes ago. It's basically what transpired between two different things or two different people or yourself in some, whatever circumstance at that particular time during the conscious level that you and that person or that event were at that particular time. Period. Full stop.
Yeah.
Everything else that you add to that story is judgment, hurt, disappointment. This is the unhappy stories I'm talking about. This is the stuff that we need to completely let go of. So, when we store all those judgments about something that happened, disappointment, hurt, blame, whatever it is, unhappy stories, they keep playing in your mind over and over and over again. So you never really heal. You never get out of the trap. You never get out of the story. And you never get to breathe in the beauty and love of the present moment, the here and now, because you're trapped in this old story. It's like a broken record that keeps skipping and repeating, and you're never getting, to the next note. It's like Groundhog Day, right? Yeah. So be aware that you're holding on to it. I want the listeners to be aware you're holding on to these unhappy stories. And for some listeners today, they might not realize until this moment that I'm speaking that they have these stories that are embedded in there. And once you're aware that you have these stories, again, something that happened 10 minutes ago or 10 years ago or 30 years ago, then you can actually, in this awareness, actually address it. Even if you speak out loud to it, who cares? Who cares? It doesn't make you crazy. It makes you very wise. You could actually think out loud or say something aloud, that you have no power over me. You have zero power over me. You are not who I am. You are just an old story. I love to say that all the time. You are just an old story. And conversely, if there are listeners who don't talk about a story, it doesn't mean that you let it go. In fact, what I found is that many of us have volumes of stories that, we conveniently stack in these bookshelves of what I call the mental warehouse that we reach for. We all do it every time we choose to suffer, right? So when we've forgotten our truth, we suffer. We feel pain, hurt, agonize. We grieve. We grieve much longer than we need to. But when we let go, then we love, and we can generate feelings of love and joy and understanding. So just now fast forward. So now we're aware. Now we let go. We say, you know what? You're just an old story. I am willing today to let go of that story. And you start to do that with each thing that pops up into the mind. And this may take some time in the beginning, and that's okay. And then each time something pops up, don't deny it. Be aware that it's there. Face it. Look at it. And just, you know what? You're just an old story. You are not who I am. You have zero power over me in this moment, today, and forever. And then you start to let in love, because there's only going to be two factors here, is fear and love.
Yes,
fear,
I wish
right?
more people realize this, because yes, it's absolutely true.
Yes, it's that's all that matters. And if you look, and you and I, for the purposes of this podcast today, we're not talking about doctrine. We're not talking about religion. But if you were to put that in that frame of mind, you could say, fear, love, good, evil,
Absolutely.
God, devil, right?
Every single decision you make throughout your day, throughout your life, is either coming from a place of fear or it's coming from a place of love, and there is nothing else.
There's nothing else. So now, perfect. Now, having said that, this is what I always say. I say this in Truth to Triumph. Fear will tell you it wants to make you safe.
Yeah.
Love tells you are safe.
Yes.
Huge difference.
Yep.
right? So who
Absolutely.
wouldn't want to feel safe all the time instead of worrying, if I do that, this may happen. If I go there, this may happen. If he does that, if she does that, we also worry about our friends, our family, our children, our parents, our dogs, for goodness sake, right?
Yeah.
But we've got, so let go of that fear. Will it's like just dropping shackles and shackles of weighted just heaviness,
Totally. Use fear as an indicator and like a warning sign, but you don't marinate in it, right? Don't live in it
Yeah,
constantly.
exactly.
Yeah.
In fact, it's interesting because there's this chapter in my book which I love. It's very, of course, I love all of them, but it's called "Liar on Your Shoulder," and that liar on your shoulder is fear. So
Yeah.
I have this chapter all about fear, and fear is that little guy. The little liar on your shoulder is that little guy on your shoulder that tells you it's much safer to stay where you are, stagnant, on the road, headed in the opposite direction as love. And you know that little guy, Sean. I mean, we've all had that little guy. Sometimes it's a big
Yeah,
guy.
it's true.
Sometimes it's a big guy.
I was
You
going to
know,
say sometimes it's like on both
yeah,
sides of your shoulders.
yeah, exactly. Both sides, But he says things like, "Don't do it. It's not safe." Or now look what you've done. What a mess you're in. Or I told you this would happen. Now what are you going to do? And these are all the things that that little guy instills in us and tells us. And when we're in this state of fear, we are totally blocking out love and the possibilities of choosing a loving life. And let me just tell all of the listeners today, it is so debilitating that we tend to lose our capability to love. And this is a dark place to walk. But conversely, the good news is to live in love is to really blow that little liar off your shoulder
Yeah.
every single time. And I want to say that I'm not suggesting that fear doesn't come knocking. In fact, let me just tell you, it never misses an opportunity.
24/7 it's there if you want to find it.
Seriously, yeah. But what I am saying is to blow it off. Don't believe it. Be aware that it's the little liar. Don't believe it. Don't let the little liar on your shoulder rob your joy. And remember, fear is an illusion. How could we fear something that hasn't happened? How could we fear something? That's an illusion. I mean, when you think about it, it's ridiculous. We're fearing something that hasn't happened,
Yeah, that's true.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
And
stuff.
yeah, and that's why I always say, we get trapped in this believing in illusion, even though like we hear every day, love, love, we need to love, but the only way we're going to love is we stop believing in this illusion, this little liar on our shoulder. A few times in my book I mentioned that we knew love all along, but we've forgotten it in all of the madness in the world around us and in our life situations. And to that extent, we forget who we are, that piece of divine oneness, if you will, in which we're all connected, you, me, the listeners, the trees, the flowers, everything. Then we also forget love. And so we fall into this bottomless pit of pain. And this pain really, again, I'm circling back now, Sean, brings us choices. It's going to bring us two choices. We'll either remember to love or act out unlovingly. We'll either remember to fear or to love.
Yeah,
Right?
I think again, everyone has their own kind of perspective of God or spirituality. I actually
Hmm.
believe that God is love, and really,
Same.
what we're all trying to get back to is love. And we do live in a world where there's so much fear, and we've been conditioned to fear, and all of that, and we're just trying to love. And I think
Oh, totally,
that
totally. We
that's
want
why
to
your
choose
message is
love.
so great.
And that is my message, and I love that you're underscoring that, because the goal for us, I want the listeners to know, the goal for us is always to return home. And when I speak of home, I speak of love, and I say that throughout Truth to Triumph. When I speak of home, I speak of love, and that is our goal, and that really is our lifelong goal. So, and that is really the essence of who we are, where we come from, what we were made up of, and that's the way we should be going down, Sean.
Absolutely, I agree. Now, speaking of stories, some of them have a purpose for good, I believe, and you've actually lived quite the life. You've achieved success as a professional dancer, actress, and in business. What is the greatest lesson that life has taught you up to this point?
Oh, the greatest lesson that life has taught me at this point is to hold on to my passion, my dreams, but not only just to hold on to them, but to actually um, use, how can I put this? Well, here's an example. You know how everyone says, hold on to your dreams, never let them go. That's all fine, and it's very Hallmark. And yes, it can be very true, and they can really happen. But really, we cannot just dream about it in our minds. And this is a large lesson that I learned with all of my experiences. We really have to hold on to the love and passion that we have for something, and use it as a catapult, out of whatever situation we're living in, that takes us to those very steps that we need to manifest that dream in our life.
You have a story about being on Star Search or working with
Hmm.
Ed McMahon. Tell us about that.
Yes, yeah. In fact, on my desk, I still have a picture back from 19 blah blah blah. I'm not going to say, when,
We're
of me,
timeless.
me and Ed. Yes, we're timeless. Me and Ed, and so yeah, I was on a roll of auditioning, and at the time in my life, I was 23, 22, 23. No, I was 23. Yes, and I was at the top of my game. I was a fierce dancer. You know, I was at the prime of my life as far as, really, really my craft being at a good point. So I was auditioning, and this was an audition. And I remember that it was a huge audition for any people that are, much younger. You can compare. Star Search was like
American Idol.
American Idol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like The Voice or
And
something.
The Voice, So You Think You Could Dance. It was huge. And Star Search it was actors, dancers, comedians, singers,
That's true. It was definitely
and
like
musicians.
a culmination of different talents, right?
Yes, it was all of that. So you had actors, dancers, singers, musicians, and comedians. 5 placements, 5 categories, if you will. So I went in for the dance category. Now, when I went in for this audition, the line was, if anyone's familiar with New York City, the blocks are very long. The line was from 6 a.m. in the morning, out the door around like 2 blocks. There were thousands and thousands of hopefuls just for the dance audition, just for the dance. Now, talk about manifestation. We were one of the last ones on, and it was definitely a challenge to keep up the uh, I guess the stamina within you, because you're waiting for so many hours, your body's stiff. When you finally get closer to inside the building and where the studios were, you got to warm up and do your thing, but you're waiting for hours.
Yeah, you're exhausted by that point, I'm sure.
You're exhausted. You're mentally exhausted. Well, I was so on top of the world. I knew before we went in, I knew that I was going to make that audition. I knew it. And this is what I'm talking about as far as manifestation. You can't just dream it. You've really got to do like real internal work for this. And don't get me wrong, you actually have to be good at what you're doing. It's like
True.
with sales,
Some
with
people
sales.
forget that part.
Exactly, exactly. When you're selling something, it's like, dude, you have to be selling something that's to someone that it's that they're buying that. They're buying what you're selling. Otherwise, you're wasting your time.
Totally.
That's a whole nother show that we could do.
It is, because I always wanted to sing, and I somewhere along the way I realized that no matter how much I wanted that dream, I just don't have a voice to be a singer,
Yes.
right?
Yes, right. Well, you may in another lifetime, Sean.
Oh, definitely.
And
Somewhere in another lifetime, I'm a pop
think-
star.
Yeah, yes, I feel the same way. It's like I sing great, like in the shower, in the car,
Exactly. Why doesn't that translate?
it's the acoustics in the shower.
It is, and it's our false belief.
It's our false belief. Oh my goodness! But so that said, they walked out. Before we walked out after auditioning, they said, "Can you?" Okay, you've made it. Can you be? We need you. We're going to send you tickets. We need you to be in. I think we had 72 hours to shorten the music, which meant kind of tweaking the choreography, getting a costume, that was made for us, that's appropriate for, that we wanted, put on national television, and get on a flight and get there. So we did. And I knew it. I knew I was going to make that audition, and it was it was so exciting. And I remember again, it was also live, but it was taped live. So right before you go on, you're standing there. I remember my place was already on stage, and I remember the director was like, I don't remember how many people were actually in the studio, but it was very similar to The Voice. And I remember just before they rolled the cameras, they said, "Okay, you have 11 seconds to make a mistake." And if you want to stop, we can redo it. Otherwise, it goes. And I'm like, that's great.
No pressure.
I'm like, I wasn't even thinking about making a mistake. Well, thank you
Right.
very much. So that's all part of that mental, again, blow the little lie off your shoulder. I'm like, I got this. I could do this, and honestly, yeah, I'm very proud of my performance. Did great. Lost by a quarter of a point, but I never felt like a loser because Ed McMahon reminded me that no one there were losers. We were all winners. And I never forgot that because he really meant that sincerely. And it was really very special to me that he said that.
Totally. That's so cool. And I think really what those opportunities are about more than anything else are the opportunity to kind of like realize and actualize whatever talent you have. There's
Yes.
so many people that have been on those shows, whether it was Star Search or, Idol, The Voice, whatever. So You Think You Can Dance, that didn't necessarily win, but still went on to greatness in their life because they had the
Yes.
opportunity, right?
Absolutely. No doubt. No
Yeah.
doubt. And I'll tell you what, it really builds your character. I'm going to say this as eloquently as I can to all the listeners. It's very humbling to lose in public.
Oh, I can't imagine. I cannot. I mean, honestly,
It's
there's truth to
very
that.
humbling. Yes. And it takes a very special soul to say, you know what? It's really good. It's really okay because this opens the door to bigger and better things. And this was not the path that I was meant to be in at this moment, but my golden path is definitely in the next moment.
Absolutely. And I personally think that humility is sometimes it's the best route to finding our truth. And so I
Yes,
think
for
when
sure.
when we're meant to find our truth, I think that we sometimes life throws some humility our way.
Oh, no doubt.
Speaking of truth, you've written an amazing book. You've touched upon it a little bit, but it's called Truth to Triumph, a spiritual guide to finding your truth. Tell me what inspired you to write the book, and what do you hope that the reader will take away from it?
Well, what I felt was that if I didn't write Truth to Triumph, everything that I went through personally in my past experience, all of the pain, the suffering, would go in vain. So knowing that there was a purpose in all of it, then I could perhaps help other people avoid similar life situations or change their current unhappy life situation for any listeners today, is really what gave me the motivation to write it. And I also felt a strong pull to be a voice, if you will, for anyone that's in a bad situation today or, maybe has some unhappy stories of their own in the past that have not found not only their voice, but have not found their truth. Because I'm all about finding your truth. Initially, I was thinking that I should title it "Don't Let This Happen to You." But I know that's initially. But the reality though of some of my stories in there I tell are so raw that I would never want anyone to go through what I did or want anyone to put another person through what I experienced for that matter. So the day that I actually sat down to write it, the first thing that I typed was the title, Truth to Triumph. And that came directly from spirit, no lie. I mean, and then I just wrote from there. So I knew that was meant to be. And this book, I tell some of my stories to shed light on those people that today are currently in a dark place. And honestly, Sean, we wouldn't be human if we didn't find ourselves in a dark place at one point or another in our life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So this book, for that reason, is really for everyone who breathes life.
I love that. Now, one of the things you write about that I actually believe is probably the most important, you talk about the keys to loving yourself unconditionally, and I think that is something that a lot of people struggle with. How do you define self-love, and what are some steps that we could take to begin to love ourselves more unconditionally?
Okay. I define self-love. That's a great question. I don't think anyone actually asked me that in that way. How do I define self-love? Okay.
Yeah, because I
Uh,
feel like it's a very esoteric concept, but I
mhm.
think at the end of the day, like if we really want to focus, we could whittle it down to something specific. And so that's kind of my challenge to you. If you haven't thought about it, I love that because let's explore.
Yeah, no, let's explore that organically for sure. I mean, I'm all for in the moment organic. I guess uh, how do I define self-love right off the top of my head is having compassion for myself,
That's good. I agree.
you know. And so how do we begin to do that? Was that part two of your question?
Yeah, I mean, I think
Of
that
loving yourself unconditionally?
the
I've
first
got
thing is to recognize it, right? Because I think sometimes we don't even recognize that we're not loving ourselves unconditionally.
right, right.
But
Have a little
then,
compassion for yourself,
yeah,
plain and simple. And so, how do we do that? How do we really begin to love ourselves unconditionally? That's an easy one for me by letting go of fear. And there comes that fear word again. We've
yeah,
got to let go of fear every time. We've got to shut off the mental noise in the mind that really obscures love from entering. And it's that simple, and yet it's that direct. Because truly, fear comes from that unconscious mind, not the heart. The heart houses love. It can only house love. So we want to remember to let go of fear, house the love, embrace it, hear it, share it. It is why we are here. I say in Truth to Triumph that love has no agenda and needs no introduction. And I mean that. It need not be activated. It just is. It's the greatest energy on the planet. Love is that key ingredient. Even science is beginning to parallel with us now. When I say us, meaning it's beginning to parallel with spiritual teachings that have been, going on for thousands of years. And I love that. I
yeah,
love that. I love how science will say, "Oh, we were wrong 6 years ago. Now, we can blast light into, different molecules to kill this or that." And I love that. And and we are made up of energy, and we are now, they are saying now that we are all connected in this energy field. Years ago, they didn't say that. So we're getting more and more, we're beginning to parallel more, and which means that we are really, really at this time of ascension, in my view, and in many others. And, that said, if we can really fuse our hearts with the love of God, we can understand real, true agape love, because love is not prejudiced. It's for all of us. It's for all of humanity, honestly, just waiting to be found under every stone unturned. And if we can't let life situations keep us from love. And that's really the essence of everything in my book as well. If you find yourself really amongst the rubble of whatever minutiae that's going on, I just want listeners to I want to encourage them to just keep turning those stones. I promise, when you keep turning those stones, you'll find love. I promise. And just embrace it. When you do, embrace it. Because this is the agape love. This is that unconditional, universal love that 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 helps us transcend no matter what your life situation is. And really, it's the one thing you can count on. Trust it. I always tell people, in your quiet time, just like take that breath and just just know and tell yourself it's okay. Everything's okay.
and it's going to continue to be okay.
Yes, it's so key. It's so important.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. You also write about one of my favorite topics, manifestation, and how to
Hmm.
choose the creations that we wish to experience. I think that
Hmm.
I think that manifestation can be a very, again, another like abstract concept to a lot of people because it's like a buzzword that people hear.
Hmm.
Can you walk us through your definition of manifestation and how you think it's worked in your life?
My definition of manifestation. I love that you're giving me all these interesting organic questions because it's really important when we really talk about something that is just organic. And manifestation could be mean something to one person and mean something to another person.
Yeah.
For me, it's not just taking um, a mental action, if you will, but to me, it's really fusing together again the heart, the mind, and go with me on this one, and this is right out of the top of my head and from my heart right now. It's fusing together the heart, the mind, and intuition. To me, that's a definition of true manifestation. When you confuse your heart, your mind, and your intuition, which is what is innate about you. Your intuition is that, some people, the voice of God, intuition. Whatever it is, but intuition is what is innate, that feeling, that thing that goes boom. When you can fuse that together with your heart, with your mind, you can manifest. You can manifest anything that you desire in life, truly anything. And I believe that, and I am living proof of that because of what I went through, and my techniques definitely work in doing that.
I'm here and I'm listening. I have a siren passing by, and so I was pausing for sound because
no, that's okay. That's
city
fine.
life sometimes causes strange,
absolutely.
strange things.
What city are you in?
I'm in LA.
You're in LA.
You're in New York,
so it's
right?
very similar. Yeah, very similar.
I'm literally like in the heart of Los Angeles, like in Hollywood. It's a good time.
Yeah, I've been there. I love it there. I was in there when I was on Star Search.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, it was in Hollywood.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So getting back to manifestation. I agree with everything that you're saying. I think I like the intuition piece because I think sometimes people don't listen close enough to their intuition. Right. And what happens is, like, let's say, I'll use this podcast as an example because I always felt like I wanted to work in the entertainment industry, thought I wanted to be famous, all of those things. And as I've progressed throughout my life, I've asked myself that truth over and over again of what is it that you really want? Like, really whittle it down. What do you want to accomplish? Why did you want to be, in that industry? Why did you want to be famous? Whatever. And what I realized I wanted to make an impact, and I wanted to help people. And
right.
So
same. That's funny. We have very similar. That's very funny.
Yeah. And so I
totally get that from my standpoint as well.
Totally. Because you were an actress, right? So
yes.
I realize that there's other vehicles to get there, and technology has blessed us with so many additional vehicles, right? And so for you, it was like, I want to write a book because I know that's going to impact someone's life. And for me, it was starting the show. It's because, you know what, I have the ability to reach people all over the world that can hear this hope, these conversations about how you can make your life better.
Yes, absolutely.
So I would encourage people that really follow that intuition, because the intuition is the thing that's telling you like what your real truth is and what the core of that truth is, right?
Yes. And there are these, and you know what, just to kind of spin off of what you're saying and add to it, I couldn't agree more. And what happens is that listeners, I want you to know that we go through, just like we go through cycles physically growing. Who you were when you looked in the mirror when you were 3 is not who you are and look in the mirror like today. Clearly. Well, the same goes through also spiritually. And by the way, don't get caught up in the word spiritual. If it's not, touch your arms right now, anyone that's listening, and that's your body. Anything that you can't touch, that's your spirit. It's no big deal. Don't get caught up in the word. It's just what is not of the body is of the spirit. It's really that simple. It's not brain surgery. So now, having said that, we go through cycles spiritually. So something that seemed like a great idea, and it seemed like that's it. This is my ultimate purpose. This is who I am. This is what I have to do. Let's say you had that 10 years ago, 20 years ago, let's say. Well, it might not have been in the universal cycle that it was really supposed to happen. It could have been a fantastic idea and a fantastic, concept or purpose. Yes. However, it might not have really been meant for you to actually manifest until, let's say, today. Does that make sense? Or it might not manifest in that way, like with Sean, when he said, let's say however many years ago he wanted to, be this famous actor, but maybe it was really meant for him to manifest changing lives instead of on the stage and in film through someone else's writing and works. Maybe it was meant for him to manifest that and make an impact on people through radio. Does that make sense?
That's it right there. And I think it's really accepting that sometimes it doesn't look like you expect it to, and we can talk about ego and all those things, but you have to let it manifest the way that it's meant to. So if you go with your intention, right, full circle. So go with your intention, and if that intention really is true, then it will manifest itself how it's meant to.
Exactly. You couldn't have put it more perfect, and I completely agree. And when, there's this big talk all the time about, creating your own reality and doing this and doing that. If you go to my website, right underneath my tagline, which is Unlock the Magic, I always say you have the magic within you to choose the creations you want to experience. Unlock it and walk a path of knowing one present step at a time. What do I mean by that is you have, the magic within you to choose the creations you want to experience. I repeated that because there is no beginning, there is no end. Creations, they are. It's a matter of us choosing. And this is a little deep, for listeners to think about. But I always say, don't think so much.
I was going to say, don't think about it.
I'm like, don't think so much. Just, look, whatever's quantum, it's not logical. It's not meant to be thought of in a logical way. It just is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and
so
you know
just,
what?
Just go with it.
That's why I do this show, actually, because I love, this is like my favorite kind of conversation that we've had today, because it doesn't have to make sense. There's something in your soul. Yeah, there's something in your soul that feels it's true. Let that just go with that. Let that be it.
Yeah, just
right?
Go with that. Just let it be. And I even, I say that even in Truth to Triumph. I say that when I'm working with people, because I work remotely with people. I say it all the time. And, look, we learn about quantum physics and, we learn about all that. But even science will tell you it's not something that you could think of in a logical way. So just, like Sean said, just go with it. So when I talk about choosing the creations you want to experience, I want you to really, really understand that the best possible creations are already created, and I want you to choose those creations. You choose what you want. You choose what you desire. And because it comes from a point of really where we come from. And if we're really all believing that we're connected to oneness, that source we're connected to is the beginning, and it's always has been. It's infinite.
Yes.
And because it's infinite, those creations are already there for us to manifest.
Agreed. What do you hope will be the legacy of your work in this realm?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. The legacy, I suppose I don't want to. I suppose the legacy would be really to not just, but the legacy would be to allow people to connect in a loving way, truly a loving way, globally. I would really love to see people first unlock the barriers in their own hearts, and then really unlock the barriers between people, races, religions. That would be a wonderful legacy that I would like to see happen. I would like to leave.
That's big stuff, and I'm on board with it. So let's do what we can to drive it
forward. Thank you.
I like to wrap up all of my conversations by asking people, because we live in a crazy world right now, what has you hopeful?
People. That has me hopeful. I feel like people has me hopeful, because if we can't hope in the purity and what's genuine and loving of each other, people need people. Then what do we really have?
I agree, and I think that brings your legacy full circle, right? Like, you can't be doing the work you're doing if you don't have hope in people.
Right. And again, this is an organic answer. I love these questions. It's right off the cuff. And that's my feeling on that one.
Good stuff. Well, thank you so much. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
Same.
And I know that everyone listening today has as well. Please tell us how we can connect with you.
Okay, great. So you can connect with me going to my website, lilysanders.live, and that's my name, LILYSANDERS.LIVE, lilysanders.live. And in fact, all of your listeners today, Sean, I'm offering a free ebook on my site. If you just go to my homepage and scroll down just a little bit, you'll see Soul Bread, Daily Affirmations That Feeds the Soul. And I put together this affirmation book for all of your listeners, 12 affirmations really designed to help people feed their soul. And it's a great tool to get started in everything that you and I were discussing today. So I encourage viewers to do that. And also, I encourage viewers to pick up a copy of Truth to Triumph, of course. Internationally, Amazon.com, Truth to Triumph, a spiritual guide to finding your truth. Or you can also get it via my website if you are in the U.S. On lilysanders.live, and you'll see a menu there. You can even scroll down on my homepage to get to my book as well. And if you do get it through me on my website, I send it off personally autographed if anyone's into that. Certainly be my pleasure. And send it off with an autograph and also a blessing. So that's kind of cool.
Nice.
Yeah. And I also created something that's pretty cool, Sean. It's an e-course that people can take at their leisure. It's called 7 Gateways to Triumph. And what it is I discuss the 7 gateways. It'll be 7 gateways, 7 lessons, for 7 weeks. And the reason why I put that together, I wanted to put a course together that would underscore the teachings in Truth to Triumph. So people don't have to actually read the book to take the course, but if they'd like to do both, they can as well. But I kind of wanted to take different teachings from the book and put it into an e-course. So that's what that's all about.
All right, I want to thank Lily so much for joining me today. And of course, I'd like to thank you for listening. Now, if you're enjoying the show, please subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. And please share this episode with anyone you think could benefit from hearing it. And you can find the links for everything we talk about in the show notes, which can be found over at thinkoutside-the-lines.com. And feel free to drop me a line with any questions or feedback on the show. You can always send an email to hello@thinkoutside-the-lines.com. Until next time, go out there and pursue your passion today, because the best way to predict the future is to create it. For more information, please visit thinkoutside-the-lines.com.